soon India's international trade can be conducted in Indian rupees.
An Indian central bank RBI has introduced a rupee settlement system for international trade yesterday.
India's Reserve Bank has come up with a new plan. Indian traders can now settle their business in rupees.
The system could help India promote its export and facilitate trade with countries under sanction.
RBI is deploying Economics 101, increasing the demand for rupee. Under this new system, for India and Russia can trade without the US dollar.
Hello everybody. On the 11th of July 2022, the Reserve Bank of India announced a big decision by allowing trade settlements between India and other countries using Indian rupee. This measure of taking INR global is a very big deal as it directly helps us trade with Russia without having the mercy of America. On one side, this move will push us into new horizons of global trade with countries like Russia, Iran, Venezuela, and Sri Lanka, etc. On the other side, this will destroy our ties with the West. So why is the RBI suddenly allowed to settle international trade with rupees? What is the strategy behind it? And how will it help the Indian economy? First of all, we need to understand what an international currency is. An international currency is something that we use to settle cross-border transactions. These currencies are widely accepted and used in many different countries around the world. These currencies are considered stable and reliable and are often used in international trade and financial transactions. Examples of international currencies include the US dollar, the euro, and the Japanese yen. These currencies are recognized by most countries as a means of payment and can be easily exchanged for other currencies when traveling or doing business in other countries. But the question is why the RBI is suddenly planning to make rupee an international currency. Ever since the war broke out between Russia and Ukraine, the American sanctions removed Russia from something called the SWIFT network, the system that is tightly controlled by both the US and Europe. And the catch over here is that more than 50% of all global trade is settled using this system alone. This makes it vulnerable in times of disaster because it has some major problems with it. 1. If the West doesn't like you, they impose sanctions on you and remove you from the SWIFT network. In short, they don't allow you to trade using SWIFT. This is what they did in the case of Iran. 2. Not allowing you to trade is still acceptable. But since the US has all the control over the dollars that are stored in American banks, the US freezes the account and cannot let you trade with your own money. This is what exactly happened to Russia. Before the war had started, Russia has more than $300 billion in forex reserves. It is frozen by America. In spite of having $300 billion in reserves, Russia can't use their own money to trade. 3. The system itself is very expensive. Since every entity that is involved in the transaction takes a commission, the cost of the transaction itself accounts for 1 to 5% of the trade. Do you realize, guys, how the West is cleverly bullying world trade with their sanctions in the name of world peace? And becoming self-reliant, that is Atmanirbhar Bharat, is one of the biggest aims of our government. Do you realize how vulnerable to relying on the West for settling our trade is? To become truly Atmanirbhar, we should be able to settle our trade with our own currency.
This is where the Reserve Bank of India's strategy comes in. RBI's plan to settle our trade with rupee will happen through something called the Special Rupee Vostro accounts. So what is a Vostro account? In simply, it's a bank's bank account in India, where the banks of countries that are willing to settle trade with our currency need to open a Special Rupee Vostro account in an Indian bank, which needs to be further approved by the Reserve Bank of India.
Now, keeping our focus on New Delhi, India's currency rupee is set to get used in international trade with some countries after India's central bank approved banks to open 5 Vostro accounts for trade with Sri Lanka using the rupee.
As of now, there are 18 such Vostro accounts out there, out of which 12 belong to Russia, 5 belong to Sri Lanka, and 1 belongs to Mauritius. And we are also witnessing the actual settlements of trade that are happening in INR. So, what are the benefits that India is going to experience with this? Firstly, we will be able to trade with sanctioned countries like Russia and get crude oil and other minerals at a much discounted price. We are also able to trade with countries like Iran and Venezuela without depending on the West. Secondly, We are also able to trade with dollar-starved nations like Sri Lanka. And interestingly, more than 35 countries are interested to opt to this system, ranging from neighbors like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Myanmar, etc., and powerhouses like Saudi Arabia and UAE. And what's more interesting is that both India and UAE's central banks are in talks for a $35 billion currency swap. And cherry on the cake is that both the Saudi and UAE central banks are in talks about where to invest the surplus rupees that will flow into their Vostro accounts in India.
And have you ever thought about what countries will do with their excess forex reserves? They just invest that money in the government bonds and infrastructure projects of the country, which have their forex reserves. And this is going to be a good thing for India. Why? Because if both the rupee real and rupee dirham trade mechanisms take place, all the profits that the UAE and Saudi will make by selling oil will be invested into our economy, which will result in boosting our economy to a greater extent. So, having our own trade settlement mechanism is crucial for achieving our $5 trillion economy dream, for becoming truly Atmanirbhar, and most importantly for becoming a global powerhouse. So, this is not just a significant move from an economical standpoint, but from a geopolitical standpoint. If you learned something from the video, please like this video to make the YouTube algorithm happy. Please share it with your friends, so they can also learn something new. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you can never miss an update from us. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next episode.